वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुसाक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। समस्त जन कल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम्। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणं विना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः। So in the third chapter we are seeing that the Lord explained in the verse number 5 that action is inevitable, action is the very signature of life, and nobody can remain even for a moment without doing action. So the choice is not whether we can act or we can't act. The choice is only on how to act. And so here this one aspect to understand is our false expectation that action, when it ends, it will lead to happiness. That should go away. Because action will not end. As long as I am living, there will be action which will keep happening. So I have to only ensure that my attitude towards action is right. In fact, as we go through life, as we evolve, we will find that more and more responsibilities come to us. More and more work comes to us. And many times the attitude is that because of that I am stressed out. More work can only physically tire us. Maybe emotionally, mentally it can drain us a bit. But if we have that equation in the mind that less work or no work is equal to happiness, then that's a wrong equation. Because that will not happen. And so we will not be able to enjoy the very work that we are doing. Because constantly at the back of the mind there is an unwillingness. I don't like this, I don't want to do this, why this is coming to me, I don't. So there is a resistance, there is an unwillingness all the time. So a person who understands is that not for a moment we can stay without action. Even if we try to, our own innate nature will push us to do action. So now the question is not on how much to withdraw and how much to act. The question is when I am doing the action, what should be my attitude? Because we saw earlier that if action is used in the right way, it will prepare us, purify us for meditation. Even those who are doing that meditation, they are not doing it for 24 hours. Few hours, and rest of the time they are engaged in selfless service of the society. So somewhere in the spiritual life, somewhere one has that kind of a notion that spiritual life means no action, all meditation. That's a wrong notion. So having understood that, now there are two pictures that the Lord paints. One is somebody who has a wrong notion and so has withdrawn from all activity. And he calls such a person as a mithyachari. Another is a karma yogi who is having the right approach towards action. So let us see, in the verse number 6 is the description of the hypocrite. Karmendriyani sanyamya ya aste manasa smaran indriyarthan vimudhatma मिथ्याचारस्य उच्यते. So he says here, whoever withdraws the senses of action, karmendriyani sanyamya, controls, meaning doesn't act. So physically that person is absolutely quiet, not doing anything. Ya aste manasa smaran, but mentally one is all the time imagining. So there is no stopping of the mental imaginations, desires, fanciful thoughts. Indriyarthan vimudhatma. So he is imagining sense objects, enjoyments, when he will get certain result, how he will enjoy, constantly imagining. But physically he is not doing anything. Mithyachara sauchate. Such a person is called as a hypocrite. Meaning one who refuses to do one's duty and says that, okay, I am going to sit quietly and do some meditation, I don't want to do any action, has withdrawn fully from action. But the innate nature of that person is not going to allow that person to keep quiet. Mentally one is going on imagining. Simple example of that you can see. It is not even a full withdrawal of action. Partial withdrawal of action we do, and you see the way the mind works. Simple example for that is you do upvas. On that day only all kinds of thoughts will come. I should eat chaat, I should eat this, I should eat that. It's not even full. In Jain upvas you do full, only water. That also between sunrise and sunset. Withdrawn from all food. Maximum thoughts of food will come that time. Withdraw from speaking. Maun Vrat. That even a few hours in a day when we try to do Maun Vrat, all urgent, important things will occur to us at that time. That I need to call this person, I need to tell this person this thing, I need to go here, I need to do this. Then what to talk about? All senses being withdrawn. So here is a picture of somebody whose body is quiet, but mind is very, very active. Bhagavan calls such a person as a mithyachari. Mithyachara means one who is not the same inside and outside. He is a hypocrite. Something else inside, something else outside. So as though he is very mature enough to withdraw and sit quietly in meditation and realize the self. But actually one is not. Contrast to this is a karma yogi. What is the description of a karma yogi? Yastvindriyani manasa niyamyarabhaterjuna karmendriyai karma yogam asakta savishishyate. So he says, Yastu Indriyani Manasa, one who withdraws the senses through the mind, meaning mentally does not imagine, mentally does not have thoughts about sense enjoyments, pleasures, has withdrawn. So the senses function only when mind is behind them. Otherwise, even when we see, we don't register. So we don't think about it. Many times that happens in satsang. When we are hearing, sound is falling on the ear, but mind is somewhere else only. So one doesn't register. So only when mind backs the senses, there is sense enjoyment or an experience with the sense objects possible. So here is a person who has withdrawn mentally. Mentally is not imagining anything, but is focused only on the work. Yastu indriyani manasa niyamya arabhate. So all the senses have been withdrawn and engaged where? Karmendriyahi karma yogam. Engaged completely in action. Mentally he has withdrawn from thoughts of pleasure, thoughts of enjoyment, fanciful thoughts. But physically he is very active. And engaging all the energies of the mind in the work that one is doing. Asaktah savishishyate. That person who is detached, that person will excel. So this is the picture of a karma yogi. A hypocrite is one who has withdrawn from action physically but mentally is imagining. But a karma yogi is one who has mentally withdrawn and physically very, very active. So mind is quiet, body is active. In hypocrite, the body is quiet but the mind is very active. So this is said by the Lord to make us aware that Karma Yoga is mainly the approach of the mind. It is not just physical withdrawal of the actions. Just by withdrawing from action, nothing happens. In fact, suppression or suffocation would happen. So here he says, asakta savishishyate, a person who is so detached. Detached from what? Detached from the desire for the fruits, detached from the fanciful imagination that when I get this result, how I will be, how this will be better, how I will enjoy. All those are gone. All that energy is conserved and is focused only on doing that action. Such a person will excel in whatever that person does. It can be even a small thing, answering an email. Can I do it with full attention? Then I can do even great work with full attention. That division, as far as Karma Yoga is concerned, that there is no division that this is small work and that is big work. Maybe the energy it may take is less and more, but the attention it requires is complete. Only such a person actually is a Karma Yogi, who can give full attention to the work at hand. Mentally, one is not lost. So now, having understood this, Bhagavan starts giving the explanation to Arjun that what should be the attitude of what is exactly Karma Yoga. Till now we emphasize the importance of karma, that karma is inevitable, you cannot avoid it. Physically if you stop also, mentally it will go on. Now he starts telling Arjun what exactly is Karma Yoga and how to practice that. So before we go into that, so based on this third chapter we have made a few principles of Karma Yoga. What exactly is Karma Yoga? Difference between karma and Karma Yoga is what? A very common word, lot of people use it, Karma Yoga. Attitude.
Concentration on the present action.
So concentration in the present action. So if I am completely focused in the present, does that make me a complete Karma Yogi? It is one part of Karma Yoga, no doubt.
Without desire for the fruits.
Okay, so one more aspect, without desire for the fruit. But what is the crux of Karma Yoga?
I think he should be detached from the results of the action. Selfless.
Selfless action. We'll see as it goes, as we go along. So action is called as karma, but dedicated action is called as Karma Yoga. That action which unites us, yoga means to unite. So that action which unites us is called as Karma Yoga. So what does it unite? Generally if we see when we are acting, our body, mind, intellect may be disintegrated. One part of the mind may be listening to satsang, another part of the mind may be somewhere else. Body is here. So body, mind, intellect are not always integrated. In Arjun's case, you see the emotions overwhelmed him so much that all the clarity that he had gone. So intellectually he knows what is the right thing, but emotionally he got so overwhelmed that he got confused and physically absolutely incapacitated. So body, mind, intellect, first thing Karma Yoga unites is it unites the body, mind and intellect. Bring all the three together. And to bring all the three together, the most important factor is love. It is not just a technique of concentration. One can put willpower and concentration and focus on certain work, no doubt. But if one has to practice Karma Yoga through the day, the most important factor is love. It can be love for that work, it can be love for the cause, it can be love for anything higher. We will come to that. So it is the love which unites the body, mind, intellect. Whenever I see, let us say I love cricket. If I love cricket, body, mind, intellect fully will be there. There is no question of disintegration. Whatever I love and where that love is very deep and intense, then the concentration is to that extent effortless. It just happens. So that is why the first aspect is Karma Yoga unites. It unites our personality, body, mind, intellect together. Second, it unites me to my own potential. There is so much of potential in me, but I don't realize that potential because I don't know how to integrate my personality, invoke that potential, manifest it through my actions in the world, do whatever work and get the achievements. So I don't know that. The art of integrating, the art of dedicating it to a higher purpose and manifesting the potential that I have. Karma Yoga gives that higher purpose to us, by which the same action invokes more potential within me. Simple thing it can be, even if I am a homemaker, I am taking care of the house. My attitude can be that, okay, I am just a homemaker, mundane work I have to do. Many people feel like that. At least earlier they used to, maybe today it's a very different thing. The word is homemaker now. You say housewife, then that is it's old, outdated. You cannot say housewife, say homemaker. So compared to people who are, ladies who are working, somebody who is a homemaker may feel that, I am only taking care of the home, I'm working. So there is one attitude to do. Otherwise, another attitude can be that this is my family, this is my home, and to that love which is there, so I do it very lovingly, very joyfully, that very action makes me happy. I can do it still with a different purpose. That in my home I am bringing up these children who have to become great leaders and heroes for the country. It's a different purpose. You may think that, oh, that is all tall talk, Swamiji, nobody brings up like that. But that's the whole point. Why nobody brings up like that? How did a Shivaji get created? How did a Vivekananda get created? How did a Gandhi get created? The mother was the one who was responsible for all of them. The mother had the right vision, the child got created that way. So the point is that the same action I am doing, the purpose when it becomes higher, more potential manifests. So Karma Yoga helps us to have that higher purpose in life and manifest more potential. And most important point of Karma Yoga is it unites me with the Lord. Action which unites me with the Lord is called as Karma Yoga. What Karma Yoga is not, that must become clear for us before that. Karma Yoga is not some special actions like social service. Social service also can be Karma Yoga, no doubt, when it is done with that approach. But merely doing social service is not Karma Yoga. Just because I go and help somebody who is poor, who is maybe not having certain basic facilities or go and help in an orphanage, by itself it doesn't become karma yoga, it is only seva. That also is done with seva bhav. If it is done with the bhav that I am doing such great social work, then it is not even that. It's just an ordinary action. So action, karma yoga is not some special actions. Why? Because many people think karma yoga is that. So they will not do the duty at home, but go out and do some seva. And the people at home are saying, "Arey, what is the use of this? We require your help here, you are not available here and you are going and helping somebody out there." Not that you should not do that, but dropping the duty and going somewhere else and doing that by itself doesn't make it karma yoga. Not working for long hours in a day. Some people say that. Swamiji, I only attend satsang. But my husband is a real karma yogi. Why? He works 18 to 19 hours a day. 18 to 19 hours a day, if I work, I don't become a karma yogi. I only become a karmi. Karmi means keep on doing work. In a modern language, English language, is called workaholic. Keep on doing work, only work. Forgetting the balance of life. So merely doing action for a long time doesn't make me karma yogi. Mere doing social service doesn't make me a karma yogi. Not mere efficiency in action. I'm a go-getter. I can achieve whatever I set my mind to, I will achieve that. Very successful person, very efficient, minimum wastage of energy. I will do that work. You are a successful, efficient person, but still not a karma yogi. Efficiency in action is a byproduct of karma yoga. But because of efficiency in action, I don't become a karma yogi. There were two pickpocketers. Very efficient. Nobody will know also and they will flick. They both decided to get married. So they got married also. And now a son is to be born, child is to be born. So both of them decide, we will make him a greater pickpocketer than us also. So he says, okay, very good. And when the son is born, this child doesn't open the fist. So the doctor and all of them are trying the level best. Open the fist, open the fist. He doesn't open the fist, and then this nurse and this doctor and all of them are so tense that what has happened? And these pickpocketers also are very disappointed. Arey, this fellow's fist has got stuck. Now if he cannot open this, how will he pickpocket? Finally, with great difficulty, they actually open. And when they open, what do they find? The ring of their nurse is already there. He was born with that efficiency. As he was born only, already flicked the ring of the nurse. Close the fist. So just because I am efficient doesn't mean that I am a karma yogi. And just because I serve my family or country, I don't become a karma yogi. This is little surprising also. Because generally one thinks that, okay, if I am dedicating my life for the country, then I am a karma yogi. I do my duty toward my family. In the deepest sense of the term, karma yoga, any action can be called as karma yoga only when it is done with this bhavana, that I do it as a worship of the Lord, dedicated it to the Lord, Ishvara Arpitam. Then it actually becomes karma yoga. Till then, it is not complete karma yoga. Parts of karma yoga are there in it, no doubt. But that action which actually purifies the mind is that which is dedicated to the Lord, and that is what unites us to the Lord. Because remember what we spoke about. Our goal is not service of the country or service of the family. That's a means. Important means. The goal is to know my own divine nature, for which the mind must be purified. Mind must be purified means selfishness must go. And selfishness can go only at the altar of that which is infinite. Because somewhere or the other there will be a limitation. Even if I am serving my country, country also is a boundary. I am an Indian, a proud Indian, and I serve the country and I am working for my country. Very good, no doubt. But that which is infinite is not limited by the country. So if I have to experience that permanent happiness, my mind must be tuned up to that all the time. So when I do action, even a small action of eating food, but I do it with that bhavna, that with that may the body be fine and may I be able to serve the Lord well. That becomes a karma. So the bhavna must be that I am dedicating this to the Lord. Ishwar arpitam. Nechaya kritam. Not for my own self-projection. So as long as this bhavna doesn't come, karma yoga is not complete. I won't say it is not at all karma yoga. It is in bits and pieces or in certain parts it is karma yoga. But karma yoga in its completeness is when it is dedicated to the Lord. This Ishwararpitam Nechaya Kritam is said in Upadesh Sar. But in the Gita itself, in the 3rd chapter, Bhagavan will mention Mai Sarvani Karmani Sanyasya. He says you dedicate all actions, Sarvani Karmani. He did not say only specific actions. Mai Sarvani Karmani Sanyasya Adhyatma Chetasa, with a spiritual outlook. Nirashi Nirmamo Bhutva Yudhyasva Vigata Jvaraha. So it is in the words of the Lord Himself that we come to know this. That when an action, any action, when it is dedicated to the Lord, however small, however big it may be, that action becomes prayer. That action becomes karma yoga. So the popular saying that work is worship should actually be work as worship. So when I do work as worship of the Lord, that is karma yoga. By itself doing work itself is my worship. If you have that bhavna, yes, then work itself is worship. That I am dedicating it to the Lord, then that work itself is worship of the Lord. But that bhavna must come. That's why that work must be done as the worship, with that bhavna. So first point Bhagavan makes here in this 8th verse is, so these are 10 principles of karma yoga which we have listed down. First point he makes here is, in the 8th verse, Niyatam Kuru Karmatvam. That Arjun, do your Niyata Karma, do your obligatory duties. Karma Jyayo Hya Karmanaha, because that is greater than inaction. Because Arjun wanted to quit, go away. And go away leaving what? Leaving an obligatory duty. See, in an obligatory duty there is no choice. In a desire prompted activity there is a choice. Suppose I am a son and my father is not well. It is my obligatory duty to take care of my father. So obligatory duties are two things. One is my daily duty, another is my occasional duty. These two combine together to form obligatory duties. Niyata karma it is called. Technically, Nitya karma is daily duty, Naimitya karma is occasional duty. And these two, daily duty plus occasional duty, form the obligatory duty. That is called Niyata karma. In this there is no choice. I have to take bath every day. Swamiji, we exercise choice. Every day I have to eat, obligatory duty. So food, sleep, all that is my obligatory duty. Exercise towards my body. In my relationships I have obligatory duties. Not only towards my family, I have obligatory duty towards country also, culture also, humanity, earth, so many things, environment. I have obligatory duties. So we will come to that part where Bhagavan actually tells us that there are these 5 types of duties that we have as householders. And we must discharge these duties. So daily duty and occasional duty. Occasional duties will come once in a while. Somebody is married, somebody's birthday, some graduation, some success, some shraddha. These are all occasional duties. So these duties too, they must be done. The first step of Karma Yoga is perform the obligatory duties, perform them diligently and cheerfully. A person who cannot enjoy the obligatory duties or do it cheerfully, that person, Karma Yoga will not purify that much. Because if I treat my duty as a burden, it's boring, I don't know what to do. That is tamas. That tamas itself is the impurity. And you see, the moment we stop doing our obligatory duty, we build a pressure in our mind. We may or may not know that. Like a student's obligatory duty is to study. How funny and strange it is that people join college for knowledge, but the criteria to join that college many times is the attendance strict or not in that college? Are we allowed to bunk or not? So then what is the point? So if study is considered as a burden, then it will build a pressure, no? Because later on as the exam comes nearby, there will be a difficulty. So when I know that there is a certain obligatory duty, I don't do exercise daily, then there is a pressure and the body will go through difficulty. Same way, I have an obligatory duty to make my mind quiet and I don't spend maybe 10-15 minutes in consciously making the mind quiet. There will be stress, worry, tension, all the time troubling me. So first step of Karma Yoga is one must perform the obligatory duty, and in this case the obligatory duty of Arjuna appears to be very terrible. He has to kill his own people. But Bhagavan makes it very clear to him, you go away to the forest and sit there quietly thinking that that is better, then you are falling from your obligatory duty and you will incur negative karma for that. So obligatory duties must be performed without compromise, must be done diligently, very efficiently and cheerfully. A person who can come to this first point will be very easily able to practice Karma Yoga. Otherwise one may practice Karma Yoga but the benefit will be very limited, because I still treat my obligatory duty as a burden. Marriage season is there, no? So many people will complain. Swamiji, now what is this happening? Marriages have become such a show. People are doing it for so long, 5 days, 7 days, and we have to keep going. We don't like to go, but still we have to go. Anyway, you have to go. Go, enjoy, come back. What else? What is the point in complaining, cribbing, grumbling? Obligatory duty it is. Now, if there is a choice, might as well get out of it. Send somebody. तुम जा. नहीं वो लोग बुरा मान जाएंगे. Okay, तो तुम जा. But go happily. बुरा मान के तुम खुद जा. So obligatory duty must be done diligently, must be done cheerfully. First point. So he says, niyatam kuru karmatvam karma jyayo ya karma. Sharira yatra pichate na prasiddhyeda karmana. Even the maintenance of the body will not happen if you don't do the obligatory duty. So there is no choice in action, because obligatory duty it is not to eat, to sleep, to take care. Then he goes on to say that same obligatory duty, if you do it with that sense of dedication to a higher purpose, that will liberate. So the 9th verse, and it's a very nice verse which one can even memorize if one likes. Yajñarthat karmanonyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. So he says yajñarthat karmano anyatra. Apart from yajna, I will come to what yajna means. Whatever else one does in the world, lokoyam karma bandhana, it only binds. Tadartham karma kaunteya. Hence you act for that higher purpose. Mukta sanga samachara, and be free from the bondage of karma. So any action which is done, yesterday we saw, no? Action is equal to action done with BA. Karma is equal to action done with BMI plus intention plus doership. So as long as the doership is very strong and intention is selfish, that karma, phala, I have to only face, and to face that karma, sometimes I may need new body also. So that karma always binds. But the same karma, when it is done with a sense of dedication to a higher purpose, where my intention is selfless and my doership I am letting go, that I am only an instrument, the Lord is the doer. And I am doing it with that bhavana that I dedicated to that higher purpose. Then that karma liberates. That's what he says, tadartham karma kaunteya. So act for that. Don't act for selfish purpose or for limited result, because that limited result will bind. So all my obligatory duties I can do with that sense of dedication. It could be any higher purpose. If one doesn't believe in Ishvara and the Lord, let one come to that eventually. It could be I do it for my family, it could be I do it for my company, for my country, any higher purpose. But where I am able to let go of my selfishness, where that purpose I love much more than myself, then that karma will purify. This is called as a yajna. There are few aspects of a yajna. This yajna is a ritual in the Vedic days, but actually it is not meant here as a ritual, it is meant as a bhavana. Karma Yoga attitude springs from this attitude of yajna, yajna bhav. Yajna bhav is Karma Yoga. What is a yajna bhav? In the olden days, people used to come together to perform a yajna for a common cause. So if they want rains in the community, in that village or the town, then all of them come together. Or prosperity they want, anything. Somebody wants a son, whatever it is. So then they do a yajna. So all people come together for a common cause, contributing whatever they can. Somebody brings the firewood, somebody brings the flowers, somebody brings the ghee, each one brings. And sinking their differences, that is the main point. Sinking all their differences, they work in harmony for that common cause. So three aspects are there. One is there is a common cause which is a higher purpose. Two, there is a togetherness. And three, there is sinking of all differences. When such a karma is done, the results that come bless everybody. So yajna literally means cooperative endeavor for a selfless purpose. That is the meaning of a yajna. So that's why even when we have talks, we call it as Gyan Yajna. Why? Because it's a cooperative endeavor. So many people are putting in their efforts to organize a very selfless, noble purpose, which is to share knowledge and empower the lives of people. So then that action becomes a yajna, which will purify my own mind, because I am doing it for the purpose, let the people be benefited. And when I do it with the dedication that I am doing it as a worship of the Lord, then that action purifies. So one meaning of yajna is a cooperative endeavor for a selfless purpose. Other meaning of yajna means the Lord Himself. In Vishnu Sahasranam, Bhagavan Vishnu itself is called as yajna. Yajna vai Vishnu. So any action that I do, which I dedicate to Bhagavan, then that action itself becomes purifying, and that unites me straight away to the Lord. It will not bind. That action will not make a person suffer. It will not create agitations. It will not create ego problems. All that won't happen. So many great saints have attained oneness with the Lord just by doing what they were doing but dedicating it to the Lord. Gora Kumbhar, he was a potter. Didn't have to go anywhere else to seek spiritual enlightenment. The same profession of being a potter, he was able to realize the truth. Kabir was a weaver. Pundalik was serving his own parents. But with the bhavna all the time that this is divine work, I am doing it for the Lord. That bhavna is Karma Yoga actually. Karma Yoga is not some action. If I have that feeling, Swamiji, Chinmayananji, Gurudev, he used to do the talks, and for him the stage and the altar, his seat, etc. So he looks at himself as a seeker, and the audience is his Vishwara, whom he is worshipping, and the whole Yajnashala is a puja room for him. And his talk is the prayer of that Ishwara. So he never gave that lecture with that bhavna that I am a spiritual teacher giving knowledge to these people. Even when he wrote letters. So one day he came, when he used to go to different places, some people would host him. So when he went to one place the host showed him the room, etc. So he went, he saw everything. He came out, they showed him, Swamiji, this is your table. So as soon as he saw the table, he said, so where is my puja samagri? And they are surprised, what puja samagri? Nothing came. Because they have never seen Swamiji sitting and doing a puja every day exclusively. So they said, Swamiji, it is not yet come, but we can arrange for it. He says, no. Where is my letter pad? Where is my pen? Where are the envelopes? For him, that is the puja samagri. His act of writing the letters to the people, when people are asking him questions or corresponding with him, that very action is a puja for him. So each and every action can be done that way. So Yajna vai Vishnu. So Yajna has these two meanings. One is that it's a cooperative endeavor for a selfless purpose. And remember, we can do every ordinary action with that bhavna. Exercise I can do with that bhavna. That the body should be fit and fine so that I can serve well. Or I can do exercise with that bhavna that I need to lose weight. And when I lose weight, I will become so slim and trim. And everybody will notice him. And they will say, wow. So then, nothing wrong with that, but then that's not karma yoga. Every action can become karma yoga, whether it is eating food or doing exercise or doing work in my profession, can be done with karma yoga. Serving my family. Dedicate your duties to a higher cause and to the Lord. Such a person, Mukta Sangha Samachara, that person is not bound by the fruits of the action. That person moves around freely. Third point here is, Karma Yoga also is to keep our vision high. When we say keep our vision high doesn't mean a huge, unimaginable, unreachable, steep target. The vision is high, meaning it is not preoccupied with I all the time. How much of our preoccupation is with this I? All the time. I do everything for myself. So even when we serve, actually the family which is given to us is a very, very beautiful means to expand in selflessness. Because if these few people I can love, I will experience the joy of what is selflessness. No, but they are not loving me selflessly. Don't worry. Selfless love, when we are able to give, it will get reciprocated sooner or later, because it's not easy to be selfless in loving. Just because I have become selfless now, how can I expect somebody to be selfless immediately? They will also take their own time, no? Because each one is in their own small shell. That survival of basic survival instinct which is there, that I have to survive. that always remains. So one is always in a self-protected shell of selfishness. Even ordinarily, to get a little bit out of that shell, to forgive people, how much we worry, what if they do again? I am not going to forgive. Because they may hurt me again. Or they will not. Even if they hurt, if you are so strong enough, nothing will happen. The person who becomes selfless and forgiving is free. So it will take time for people to come out of their shell. One has to wait patiently. So if I am able to love selflessly, family becomes a very field for me to evolve. I don't have to go separately to a spiritual class and meditation and evolve separately. Doing some social service somewhere else. It's very easy to love somebody whom I don't know. Don't know meaning? Because it's temporary. And not that love is not genuine. It is fine. I mean, you go to an orphanage and donate something or spend some time. Genuinely you feel good, you love, and you do it out of selflessness. You feel happy. Why did Jesus say, love thy neighbor as thyself? Because to love the neighbor is most difficult. And he said neighbor. He didn't say family. Because he knew that will be very tough. People will say impractical. Chalo neighbor ko to kar lo. But not. Immediately those who are near me, if I want to practice Karma Yoga, I can start from now on. So many festivals we have is for that. Forgive and forget and keep giving love. Today only on Facebook there was a nice picture somebody had posted. A very small boy, his hands are so folded and he's smiling, and he said, the caption there was that I know to love unconditionally, your actions are irrelevant. So sweet. I know to love unconditionally, your actions are irrelevant. Whether you respond, you don't respond, you hurt me, I don't care. I know only to love unconditionally. I will keep loving. So a person can practice Karma Yoga in the house itself. If I can see divinity in people around me, then I can see divinity everywhere. I try to see divinity in some unknown things, but think that all people around me are devils, then there is not Karma Yoga. I always say that before you start seeing God in everyone, see the good in everyone. So if I see the good in everyone, automatically I will be more and more positive and I will be able to love. And that love I can offer as my prayer to the Lord, that Bhagavan, you have placed me in this family, you have placed me in this work situation, and I am doing my best to love and to serve, and I am serving you only. Whether that person reciprocates, doesn't reciprocate, that is a different matter. My connection is directly with you. And actually it is true, it is not a theory. It's Bhagavan only in the hearts of everybody. If we have that purity of feeling, it can touch even the hardest of hearts without much effort. One conversation that Narad ji had with Valmiki transformed him, Ratnakar. That's one conversation. Buddha had with Angulimal, transformed him. Why? Because the love of that Buddha is so unconditional and free flowing that it will touch the heart. There is no question about it. The same sentence if anybody else had told him. When Angulimal came and Buddha was there, people had told Buddha, don't go there. He will chop away your fingers. But Buddha was fearless. He went. So when Buddha went, and he had no sign of fear on his face at all. So Angulimal was stunned that, how you are not scared of death? He said, no. He said, anyway, do you have any last wish? He said, yes, go and cut the branch of the tree. He said, that's all? He said, yeah, go. So he cut the branch of the tree and he brought it. He said, now go and join it. He said, what a fool you are, how can I join? And that's where he said that to destroy is very easy, But to build, to join, to create is very difficult. So one saint, he said, जो काटते जाता है वो कटते जाता है, जो जोड़ते जाता है वो जुड़ते जाता है और भगवान से जुड़ जाता है. So the same thing, if you and I had said, what would have happened? Our head only would have gone. Because it's not the words, it is the bhavana behind that. Because he is flowing with that love. So where I am, in my house, in my profession, how much ever selfless I can be, I should start doing that. And do it as a worship of the Lord. Don't bother about whether people are doing, not doing. They will come around whenever they have to come around. So, third point is keep the vision high. We must be convinced about the power of selflessness. You see, our problem is we are very, very convinced about the power of selfishness. And we are insecure about selflessness. That if I become selfless, I will be exploited. Because we equate selflessness and goodness with dumbness. Yeah, I'm telling you. Good people are weak, good people are dumb. Bichara bhala admi. What bichara bhala admi? Bhala admi has to be strong, no? Because I don't have that faith in the power of goodness, in the power of truth, in the power of selflessness. When somebody has become selfless and a great leader, then we'll applaud. What a sacrifice, such a great man. Why? So we all admire that. No? Then why we are not able to do that? Because somewhere I believe that being selfish, I am protecting myself. Being selfless, I will get exploited. Nobody said that you get exploited by being selfless. Person who is selfless can be very smart. Please remember. Because sattva guna is there in that person. In fact, the person who is selfish is caught in his or her own shell so much that can't even see where the other person is coming from. Will be caught unaware. And is it not that we find, is everybody who is selfish being protected? How many people who are selfish are being taken for a ride or not? So then, it's a myth to think that being selfish I am protected and being selfless I will be exploited. It's a wrong notion. Along with selflessness, there has to be smartness. There is no doubt in that. And real selflessness will bring that. So we always say that be not only good, but be aggressively good. Aggressive goodness is returning goodness in spite of negativity. Passive goodness is goodness in return to goodness. That is very normal. So how do I keep my vision high? Let me be convinced. And the best example for selflessness and smartness is Bhagavan Krishna himself. Who could take Krishna for a ride, you tell me? Anybody? Nobody. And don't tell me that he was Bhagavan. People who are selfless, world's longest standing institutions are the institutions established by the people who are selfless. Tell me one multinational which is 500 years old. Give me one example. 500 years old. I am not even asking you 1000, 2000 years old. Only 500 years old. There won't be any. But you see the organization created by spiritual masters. The Shankaracharya. If you believe his historical date even to be 700 AD, how many years? Buddha, he did not even, he did not even want to establish anything that way. He realized, awakened himself, and then he thought, let me share. He trained some 500 monks. He never had ambition that Buddhism must conquer Japan, must go to Sri Lanka, must go here, must go there. But Buddhism today is the biggest Fastest growing religion. How many people in Mumbai are going to Buddhism? That chanting class. How that happens? Power of selflessness. Because these are in harmony with nature. The beauty of this third chapter is that third chapter speaks about this, the principle of yajna. The principle of yajna is that which is in harmony with the nature. You just think about it, everybody in this universe, every creature in this universe gives. Man alone is the one who takes, exploits, destroys himself, destroys the planet. And one planet is not enough, find another one. Go to Mars, destroy that also. I'm not saying we should not go to Mars, but what does human being do? Gurudev always used to say that, you will see in his, so he says here, the yajna spirit is seen everywhere. The sun shines, the moon appears, the sea throbs, the earth bears, all in the spirit of sacrifice and self-dedicated motherly love. Never with even a trace of attachment or any kind of self-arrogating motives. The only human being who doesn't know to give, is insecure about giving. He always calculates, what will I get? So in SMS language, a lot of people use short form. So WIIFM, you know what is WIIFM? What's in it for me? That's a question that everybody asks. What's in it for me? What will I get? Best part is they ask that for spiritual class also. What will I get if I go there? You will not get anything. We will take away all your ego and everything. If you are ready to give, then you come. Otherwise you don't come. Sit at home. So the point is, how much can I give? Keep the vision high, meaning let us have that attitude of giving more than what we consume. We have a very nice line in the Chinmaya Mission pledge. We always say that producing more than what we consume, giving more than what we take. Always. Give more than what you take. If I have this one simple policy, in relationships my sorrow will end. Sorrow comes because I keep waiting, expecting, taking, wanting. But if my policy is, in this situation, what can I give? Must. No, but to give I also must have. No. You must have. So connect with that infinite source from where you can keep on taking and it will still not get empty. I am connecting to a finite source. Taking love from these people, giving to these people. My quantity only is finite. How will I ever feel complete? That's why Vivekananda ji said a very nice line. He said, finite can never love the finite. Infinite alone can love the finite. Truly speaking. But that which is infinite, there is nothing, no limits in that. And each one of us has that infinite source of love, peace, happiness, knowledge, power. Each one of us has that inside us. We only don't know. The moment we learn to tune up, and the way to tune up is give. Because that is the rhythm of the universe. We have been created that way, to give. The more we give, the more we will be able to experience that selflessness. So keep the vision high and let us live in that attitude of giving. Fourth is reduce self-importance and self-projection. That's what was said earlier. Those who work for themselves, they will work under stress, worry, tension. And those who work for a higher purpose will also achieve greatness, but without stress, worry and tension. It is not that they will not achieve greatness. The choice is, can I work selflessly and be happy with achievements? Or work selfishly, be stressed out and worried? That's the choice that we have. And it is possible to be selfless and happy. We need conviction and we need our courage to live that. Bas. So more of this we will complete tomorrow. Tomorrow is the last day, and so this Karma Yoga portion of this third chapter we will complete tomorrow.